didn't know I could be so much fun, did you?
No.
All right, be serious here.
Let's get serious.
You all set?
Yeah, so they're all kind of.
Okay, good evening, everybody. It's my pleasure as superintendent of schools to call together the reorganizational meeting of Thursday, March 22nd, 2018. Mrs. Belcher, will you please call the roll?
Brian Boyle.
Here.
Lee Doobie.
Here.
Stephanie Doobie.
Here.
Kim Farah.
Here.
Dan Guide.
Here.
Sarah Markham.
Here.
Sue Sherman.
Here.
Jennifer Silva.
Here.
Kelly Ward.
Here.
Also here tonight is, as you know, the superintendent of schools. The presence of other district administrators, as well as Timberlane Teachers Association officers, will be reflected in the meeting minutes.
Will you please stand and salute the flag? I'd ask Mr. Geary if you please lead us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you. First, for the first part of the business this evening, I just want to thank those outgoing members that fulfilled their terms, their obligations to the voters. So first, I'd like to thank Greg Spiro from Atkinson. Did a great job serving his term. And also like to thank Peter Belo from Plastow, who also fulfilled his obligation in his term. And that being said, we'd like to welcome some new members, and I sent them a quick email this afternoon so they wouldn't be put on the spot if they had something that they wanted to prepare. So in no particular order, I start like congratulations to Jen Silver, and I didn't know if you wanted to say a few words and welcome. Or
Thank you. No, I didn't have anything prepared, but I appreciate all the support I got through this whole campaign, and I had some really nice conversations, and people reached out to me, present, past school board members from Atkinson and also from other towns, so that was really nice to get their support. So just thank you, everybody.
Great. Well, thank you, Jen. Lee Doobie from Sandown, congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the voters of Sandown for entrusting me with this responsibility. It is a tremendous burden that's being placed upon me, and I recognize that, and I promise to serve the town and the district well. I want to work together with this board in a collaborative manner. I want to put our personal differences aside and work in the spirit of unity to move this district forward. My commitment is 100% to the town of Sandown and its wonderful residents, and 100% behind Timberlane and all of the wonderful administrators, teaching professionals, and students that we have here. I think we can do some great things if we work together in a collaborative manner, and I'm here to work diligently over the next 3 years to continue to move us forward in a positive direction.
Thank you, Mr. Duke. And last but not least, from Plastow, Sarah McEmer, congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. I'd like to just reiterate what my fellow new board members have said as well. I had some great conversations over the course of the campaign, and with the same thing, with new and present board members, and I'm just really dedicated to moving forward, working together, and just trying to work, like Lee said, in a collaborative manner with everybody on the board. Thank you.
And I'd like to, just take this moment to thank, and we'll accept nominations in a minute, but I have to reflect back on last year. I wanted to thank Brian Boyle, who's the chairman of the board. We were an interesting pair, and I think we did a lot of great things together. I think we did a lot of work, as well as Dr. Farah. So I wanted to thank them, and whatever the next team is, or the same team, whatever happens, I just didn't want to miss the opportunity to thank the both of you for your time. They both have put in a tremendous amount of time, and I'm sure they could tell you it's like having a second job that's really your first job when you're in those roles. So again, thank you for your commitment and all the time. At this time, it's my pleasure to accept nominations for the role of chair. I've done this incorrectly in the past where I ask for seconds. You don't need a second. You take nominations and they just add names, and then they'll vote, and I'll take the vote, if it's okay with the board, in the order in which the nominations come in, if that's okay. And then I'll ask 3 times, and then we'll close nominations. And at that point, the new chair will take over, and they will manage the meeting from that point out. So at this point, we're looking for nominations for school board chair for Timberlane for the 2018-19 school year. Chair recognizes Dan Guide from Plastow.
Actually, before I make my nomination, I'd like to ask that we take a moment of silence. We haven't met since the tragedy that happened in Florida, so I I think we should do that, and then I'll make my nomination, if that's okay.
Great. If the room would oblige, I guess we should probably stand and take a moment of silence.
I think we can include Phil Constantino.
And,
Chief
Chief,
Constantino,
yes.
absolutely. And anybody else in your own personal lives and that you need to keep in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you. Thank you. At this time, we'll get back to the order of business in terms of nominations for school board chair.
I'd nominate Sue Sherman for school board chair.
Okay, Dan Guy from Plastow nominates Sue Sherman from Plastow for school board chair. Kim Farah from Danville.
I nominate Brian Boyle for chair.
Kim Farah from Danville is nominating Brian Boyle from Atkinson for school board chair. Are there any other nominations for school board chair? I think I read out that you have to ask 3 times, right? So, are there any other nominations? And for a third time, asking, are there any other nominations? So at this point, we'll close the nominations for school board chair. Yes, Ms. Farah. Dr. Farah, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead and close. I just wanted to ask a question of the people that are being nominated.
Oh, okay. Okay, so nominations are closed. So we have 2 nominations for chair. We have Sue Sherman from Plastow, and we have Brian Boyle from Atkinson, and the floor is yours, Dr. Farah.
So my question pertains to the budget, the current budget as it stands now, which is, there's some concern that it's lower, regardless of which budget had passed, either the default budget or the proposed budget. It is clear that it may require some shifts in staffing. As you know, my understanding is that any staff changes, people that may not be coming back because of this, would have to be notified by April 15th. If you're chair, how are you going to approach this in the next 2 to 3 weeks, where we only have a limited amount of time to handle this? I think Mrs. Schumer might want to go first, because she was nominated first.
You were asking me that
No,
question.
I'm asking both of you the
the same
question.
question? So I think as the chairman of the board, you need to work with the superintendent. We put our faith and his expertise and his staff and administration's expertise to make the very best hard choices, and then bring those very hard choices, unfortunately, here. When we're gonna work with a default budget, we've got some really tough choices, so I would work really diligently helping the superintendent.
I guess, so what is the role of the chair in terms of
Helping
bringing
the
it?
superintendent.
Helping the superintendent, so.
Make those decisions and getting them to the board.
Okay, and I guess we just have one meeting to do that based on what we're looking at right now.
Okay, well, okay. My response is I concur with the majority of what Mrs. Sherman said. I guess the difference is, especially with the, because of the April 15th, and I believe it's technically even before that deadline, I do believe you'd have to work very close to the superintendent, but I do think you should have a school board meeting, a special meeting before that, so the board can actively be involved in whatever this decision is. So you know, because of the calendar here, you just can't wait a full couple of weeks.
Are there any other members that would like to comment or question, or I guess that would be the 2 things, right? Either of the 2 candidates before we move this to a vote? Seeing none, if you're comfortable moving this to a vote?
Sure.
Okay. As I indicated earlier, we'll vote in the order in which they were nominated. Ms. Pelcher, would you like just a show of hands, like
Show
we
of hands would
typically
be
do,
work.
instead of asking one at a time, or a show of hands?
Show of hands would work, yes.
Okay, and I want to make sure I phrase this. This is my intention, is to phrase this. Those in favor of Sue Sherman for chair, you would raise your hand voting yes, that's who you want for chair. Is that okay? So at this time, I'll ask for those in favor of Sue Sherman being the chair, please raise your
I
hand.
thought that's what he asked.
You hold your hands up just for a moment so I can get that. You do be. Thank you.
Do I need to take the next vote?
I don't believe that you do.
Do
I think you should.
But you can if you want to. Maybe someone wants to vote twice.
I think it says, oh, the next vote, I'm sorry.
Should
You
I
need
vote?
to take the next
Do
one.
I ask for the second vote?
I would.
think
Okay,
you
okay,
should.
I'm sorry, I just want
I
to make
would.
sure. Those in favor of Brian Boyle from Atkinson as the school board chair, please show your support by raising your hand.
Thank you.
That's it. We're all set.
We are all set, sir.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to congratulate Sue Sherman on her appointment or her election by her fellow board members as the school board chair for the Timberlane Regional School District. Congratulations, Ms. Sherman.
Thank you. Have you got your?
Congratulations, Sue.
Thank you.
My luggage? My luggage too? No?
Give your luggage with you. Thanks, everybody. Okay, if we could move along then and move this agenda forward, we've got quite a bit of business and 2 meetings to go through. So, we'll listen to nominations for vice chair from the floor. Brian,
I'd like to nominate Kelly Ward for vice chair.
nomination from Brian for Kelly Ward. Other nominations? Yes, Kim?
I'll nominate Brian Boyle for vice chair.
Kim's nominating Brian for vice chair. Other nominations? Are we all set? Hearing no others, are we ready to vote? Kim, you're all set to vote? You don't want to ask questions of these 2 candidates? You're all set? We're all set? Not, then all those in favor of Kelly Ward for vice chairman, raise your hand.
Thank you.
All those in favor of Brian Boyle for vice chair, raise your hands.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Kelly. Vice chairmanship. So I appreciate everybody being here tonight. We have a pretty set kind of template that this reorganization meeting has to go through. I'm going to kind of stick to this list and see if we can chug our way through it for all of us here. Some of this is kind of boilerplate stuff that we do every year, and some of us who have been on the board for a while know that we have to go through this. So the next one on the list is school district clerk. And I believe the school district clerk is Nancy Lewisell at the moment, and she is seeking to be reappointed. Danny,
I'll nominate Nancy to be reappointed as school district clerk.
can I hear a second for that, please?
I'll
As an
second.
affirmation. Who seconded? Kelly's seconding.
Thank you.
Question?
Yes,
Madam Chair?
yes, sir.
Excuse me, ignorance here. What is the function of school district clerk?
So that, Nancy is the person who does a heck of a lot of work while we vote. When we vote, she's at the deliberative. She does, I've been swearing in of the elected officers for budget committee and school board. Did I miss anything? Is that essentially it, kind of encapsulated here? Not minimizing the job. Tallies the votes. Oh, yeah, that's kind of important. Anybody else? Questions about Nancy's job? If not, let's take it to a vote. All in favor of Nancy Lewisell being reappointed as district clerk? Show of hands.
Thank you.
Opposed? Is that all of us? No abstentions, right?
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to school board recording secretary. And Kathy Belcher has been our recording secretary, and we forget to thank her, and I know Brian has mentioned to me many times in his term here as chair, how much he's relied on Kathy's expert help in a lot of things. So Kathy, you're willing to be reappointed?
If you will have me.
And so can I hear a nomination for Kathy? Dan?
I'll nominate Kathy Belcher as school district clerk. She already has the plaque, so,
I make those
Recording
too.
secretary.
recording secretary, so.
And can I hear a second just for affirmation, if I could, please?
I'll second.
Thanks, Sarah. Any discussion on the appointment? Questions, concerns? If not, I'll bring it to a vote then. All in favor of Kathy Belcher to be reappointed as school board recording secretary?
7, thank you.
Opposed?
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that one.
Stephanie and Kim.
Seven.
are
Stephanie and Kim.
Yep, so
Thank you.
7-2.
7-2. Got it? And now that brings us to treasurer. And we have a vacancy for that position. And I want to thank Brian and Kim for the work we did when we had the vacancy earlier when we had the passing of our treasurer back in August, July. And we worked pretty hard. We saw some pretty good candidates, I thought, and I thought we were all set. The person that took the position has vacated the position, so we're back to looking for some candidates. I have a couple of names that have been approached. Brian and I had a couple of names, or at least a name. So I don't know what action we want to take on that. Before we let those people apply, we put a feeler out or a letter of intents out asking if anyone was interested. Or do we want to go that route again? Danny and then Brian?
So I guess I have two questions. One is the assistant treasurer who's been filling in want the treasurer job, I guess?
Well, I was here doing some SAU business, because until next week, I guess I'm still the SAU chair too. And lo and behold, they were here working. And she's been trying to. She doesn't want to be, the assistant doesn't want to be the permanent person.
Okay.
But realizes she just has to take up the slack and help us. And in fact, even the Hampstead treasurer has come down and tried to, help her, because the assistant has not done much of it, so wasn't really used to doing what the treasurer did. So we've got a sense of cooperation here and some people helping out, and she's gonna stick with it until but she doesn't want it permanently.
Okay, and my second question is are any of the candidates still seeking that position?
We haven't.
I guess
we
is my
kinda
question, right?
confirmed
Because
it,
I mean,
but
it's been a
have we-
little while. I don't know if they still want it or whatever. I mean, I'd hate to appoint somebody
I know.
that you and Brian, had talked to, and then they just say like, well, I don't really want it now. That's my fear.
And we had a little bit of time there, and in fact, I thought that time might be a factor, that we had somebody, we might not have that person anymore.
Right.
So, Brian, what do you think?
Well, I guess we get snowstormed out there. A couple weeks ago, I was trying to set up a meeting for that very reason, to appoint, help me out, the woman's name, Blastown?
Do you think we should say the name, but?
She applied, she was one of the three. I don't see any point, but, okay, name or not.
Yeah.
There's a person from Plastow who interviewed for the job first time, seems highly qualified. I don't think there's because it was less than 6 months ago, we went out
Yeah.
advertising it. I don't see this grandiose pool of people who want to take on this job. She would be my first choice. But I believe on this topic here, Madam Chair, that before, not right now, but I think that this board is going to have to go into a non-public to talk about even the resignation of the previous chair, and I think this, previous treasurer, because I think there's going to have to be some things that we're going to have to address as a board.
Can we table this until we have a chance to
I guess as long as we appoint
Have an
an
assistant.
assistant,
We have,
can
yeah,
table
well,
this.
right, we'd have to make
We
sure
already have
this-
one.
We have an assistant, but she needs to be
We have to
reappointed.
reappoint.
We've
Right,
gotta
she has to be
reappoint
reappointed is what I meant.
without, because we don't, I'm reluctant to just appoint the person that Brian and I had reached out to. I'm reluctant to do that without having another chance to offer her. I don't know what's happened in the last couple of weeks, and I don't think Brian has either.
And I don't,
That's not fair to her.
correct.
And a couple other people have approached people, and names have been mentioned, so.
I am reluctant to even move forward with the treasurer position or appointment until we have a non-public to discuss why the previous treasurer
Okay.
resigned.
So that's why I was asking, do you want to table this until we can have,
We need a
Non-public?
non-public tonight about this. The previous
right at this point in the
treasurer-
meeting?
It's up to you, you're the chair, but we need a non-public about this tonight. When did the current treasurer resign? What was the effective date on that resignation?
Either way, we have to keep the,
It was March 1st, so we're already a month.
So you already know the question. I love it when you do ask
So-
questions you already know the answer to. So just state it. You already think it was March 1st that she
I don't-
resigned? I don't know.
Dr. Metzler, when did does anybody,
Nobody resigns from anything until the resignation is accepted by the board. So
we
they can
didn't-
send,
Okay.
send it in whenever they want, but you hadn't
we
accepted
didn't
it yet.
accept it.
so have we had a treasurer currently, when was the last time we had so do we have a resignation letter from the current treasurer that we're accepting? Because how can we not even talk about nominating somebody until we accept the resignation of the treasurer?
Well, you don't automatically go the next term. You would nominate somebody tonight anyway, even
Right.
if it was the same
If
person.
it was the same
You
person.
can't resign from a nomination.
Remember, we talked about that when we asked this.
Correct. I think before we move with the treasurer, that we need a non-public to discuss the resignation of the previous treasurer.
Well,
we should,
again, can we,
you need the assistant either way.
right,
Yeah.
so I would suggest we, yes, Dan?
I'll make a motion to table the treasurer appointment.
Second.
You had the motion to table?
Seconded.
Kelly has seconded.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Everyone know where we're headed here, so that we can do this in some kind of logical sequential order here. All right, so hearing no discussion, all in favor of tabling? Raise your hand. That looks unanimous, 9-0. Okay,
I'd like to make a motion.
sure.
I'd like to motion that we go into the non-public at the end of this meeting, before the next meeting, to discuss the resignation of the previous treasurer.
So could we, before I accept a second, could we get through this and then you make your motion at the end to go into non-public? We okay with that? Do we need a motion to make a motion to go into non-public?
No, I'm just making the motion for a non-public, but the non-public will be at the end of the meeting, that's all.
I think just make the motion at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'll make it at the end of the meeting.
Yeah,
I'll withdraw the motion until the end of this meeting.
I'm happy to entertain that motion when we get to that point. I think we all are, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's move on, if that's okay, to Assistant Treasurer, and that's Lori, I believe her name is spelled Perillo, right? She's been our Assistant Treasurer, she's working hard, helping us out right now, and she's seeking reappointment as Assistant. Do I hear a nomination? Dan,
Nominate Lori Perillo for Assistant Treasurer.
there a second?
I'll second that.
Kelly's seconding. Any other discussion about it? If not, I'll call for a vote. All are willing to reappoint Lori Perillo to Assistant Treasurer. Looks unanimous. School Council. Looking for a recommendation to allow the superintendent to seek legal counsel when necessary with the firm that's most appropriate for the issue that we've got to deal with.
So moved.
So Kelly's made a motion,
I'll second that.
Dan's seconding it.
Discussion?
Absolutely,
Well, no.
absolutely.
Okay, I think the board should be, and as I've said before, hiring counsel should be coming in front of this board. Nothing that I'm aware of happened that you have to have an answer within 3 minutes. So when you're looking at something that involves a lawyer, a school counsel, I believe that the school board should be involved in that. I also believe that I don't believe it's a fact. The school board is its own entity. The SAU, the SAU is a different entity. The superintendent is the administration. So we, as a school board, should have counsel. So I just have a problem with just a carte blanche of whenever you think you need something, pick up the phone. That just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Day-to-day operations happen that don't involve the school board, whether it's special ed type legal things come up that have nothing to do with the school board. Those are the kind of things that I think the superintendent and his staff should clearly have carte blanche or non-permission needed from the school board. But when you start talking anything about a ballot, about budgeting or anything like that, this should go back to this board. That's my thoughts.
Other thoughts? Kim?
I know that we currently use Drummond and Wilson, and we also use Drummond and Wilson for the SAU, is that not correct? Woodsum, okay. You know, we had a discussion a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, whenever it was, with Mr. O'Shaughnessy from that firm about some of the, you know, we have them representing the SAU, we've had the SAU have legal opinion that really is pertaining to this board as opposed to it coming from the Timberlane board, the Timberlane board requesting that. I would like to recommend that this board have a different legal counsel than the SAU board so that it's clear which legal counsel is applying to which board. I frankly was a little confused. Is this speaking for the SAU? Is this person speaking for the school board? I would prefer to have a separate legal counsel from a separate firm for that. I think it will make it much clearer to people which lawyer, if we're speaking about the SAU versus the Timberlane School Board. And I think there was some agreement from the legal counsel at that point, at that meeting. It is unclear.
Other thoughts? Lee?
It's very vague to me, the way this is worded. I like to operate in parameters, but I don't want to put the superintendent in a position where there is an urgent matter that needs immediate counsel. You know, we meet every 2 weeks. Does everything need to happen immediately? No. Do some things have a sense of urgency behind them? Yes.
Correct.
So it's just too vague for me. I'd like to see some parameters around it. I don't know if that's even achievable. I'm not familiar enough
So
with the type of situation.
would you think like a parameter would be the named, part of it is when you name the legal counsel in this recommendation, then you kind of pigeonholed, we're only gonna use them. And that might not always be the best for the situation.
You know, and I'm not actually
Yeah.
talking about counsel, I'm talking about circumstances.
Yeah, yeah.
Circumstances by which the superintendent is authorized.
I wish we had a nice bulleted list that we could say, A, we do this, and B, we do this.
But invariably, you're gonna miss
it's-
one.
There's always something that, who thought we would need da-da-da-da-da.
Exactly.
So I think you've got to give a little bit of, you gotta give, you know, some of us like things a little narrower, I understand that,
Yeah.
but you've gotta have a little bit of leeway here. And I do agree with Kim, that there is sometimes that little bit of, so who are you speaking for now? Are you speaking for the board, an individual board member? I don't know, who are you speaking for? And it gets a little tricky, and I think for him it does too.
I'm sure.
Dr. Messler, did you wanna put some
Sure,
information in?
I think what's important here, Drummond Woodson has a very deep bench, so they have, they have labor law attorneys, they have special ed attorneys, they have people that help with negotiations. So if there's a council of record, this is the best council of record, because they do have the deepest bench, and they have the most talent. So, what we've done, and it's a Hampstead and SAU as well, is to go to the firm, obviously, that's most appropriate for that particular situation. And yes, some things do happen within those 2-week windows that you need immediate support to protect the board, to protect the district, protect personnel, what happens. So, we use the same firm but different lawyers within the firm for all 3 entities, as Mr. Boyle was talking about. Hampstead does that as well, but they do something similar. They say go to the firm that's most appropriate, because there might be another firm in a particular instance that may have, and John Wilson may even say, you should probably go to this particular firm on that issue. They'll help you. They have an expert in this particular area. So it is good to have some flexibility, which is kind of the opposite of what you were talking about. You narrow, and I think this board narrowed it a little bit to not take action, to not file any, which we never do. We defend ourselves against other people's actions. That's really what it is, and I think that's why it's important that you have a firm with a deep bench, because it's just there's a lot of things, and Mr. Boyle indicated a couple of them, when you start getting into elections and ballots and things, Kathy, Nancy, other people in the office, not me, they need direction from an attorney so that they get it right. So that's why that flexibility is helpful.
Brian, then Kim.
I guess for the new members, what I'm trying to avoid is having SAU council go after the Timberlane School Board.
You mean the SAU Board Council? What SAU?
Okay, specifically, this year, there was examples.
Yeah.
After hours and hours of default budget. Hours of it. Then this kept going on. So this board, as we've done so far tonight, by majority vote, has its broad powers, okay? I don't want to encourage the superintendent's office or anyone else to take an SAU council to challenge this board.
Can I speak to that?
Sure. And then
I think that's one way of looking at it. Our attorneys, we have the best attorneys. Drummond Woodson is the best, and they give this board the very best advice.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like the advice because you want to do something else, that's not the council's fault. They're giving you the best advice. They're asking you to follow the law. That's what they're doing. So they're not going after this board. I think that's a really misrepresentation of
Okay,
what takes place.
Let me rephrase that. There was, the conversation continued, and I was the chair, okay? Wasn't that long ago. And basically, the superintendent legally has the authority from last year's, and could be extended this year when we go to a first SAU meeting, where the SAU board handled it different than this board. Just said, whatever you think. If you think you need a lawyer, just go. That's fine. That's that board's right to do that. What I tried to do last year is get it down to specifics. I have no problem when you get day-to-day operations, as you just said, a slip and fall in the parking lot, especially type thing. That has nothing to do with this board, unless they're looking for us to sign off on some kind of out-of-court settlement. I was looking for something that I was just trying to put some parameters, well put, that we don't allow ourselves to be sued from within, if you will, or be challenged legally from within. And it's and I just think that there is a way to word this so the superintendent has complete authority over day-to-day operations. But when you start talking to seeking legal advice regarding the school board, that should be a different animal. I'm sorry.
And you think it should be a completely different council?
Me personally, I think.
I'm asking you personally.
Okay, me personally, I think I respect the heck out of O'Shawn. I think he's a very sharp guy, but I happened to be there. I think a few of us were there that night at the deliberative. That might have been the infamous library meeting where O'Shaughnessy was pretty much saying, "Well, yeah, I'm wearing a bunch of different hats here."
Yeah.
And he was being put in a bad position. He's like that he really didn't want to be in. Like it's almost like if he does a great job, but it's, to me, my concern is, and we lived it, nothing, thank God, nothing happened. It's always nice when nothing happens. I personally think it would make sense to have, me personally, a council, and then you have like.
For the board.
For the board, and then we meet with the SAU and have SAU keep, determined that there's no question, they don't need Brian Boyle to tell them, that's a top-notch law firm, there's no question. O'Shaughnessy's a pretty sharp guy.
Right.
But I just didn't, there was a couple of exchanges there that he was wearing multiple hats and serving multiple people, and that wasn't really fair to him, his firm, that's all.
Thank you for being patient, Kim, and then Danny.
The idea of, if you appoint a council of record for the school board, does not mean that you cannot go to a different firm should you need them. That's typical in towns, is we have a council of record, but if we don't have somebody that is up on land use within that firm, that doesn't mean that the town has to use that firm for every single thing. So if we find that Sewell Kidder didn't have the depth or didn't have the type of lawyer that would be needed, I don't know why they wouldn't for school board business, I'm not talking about day-to-day operations, then I don't have any issue, there would not be any issue with going to somebody else. To say that we'd be stuck because we don't have the depth in that firm, I don't think that that's an issue, because you can always go beyond. It's just that's your council of record.
Can I?
Yes.
I think it's important.
I'm sorry, Dan, would you mind?
Can I just on this particular issue? You have the New Hampshire School Board Association, you have free access to legal counsel at any time, any one of you.
Right.
That's the school board attorney that you pay dues to and you have access to. So that's an important factor. I would tell you that it's a mistake to not use Drummond Woodson as the Timberlane. They are the best firm, there's no doubt in my mind. They have a deep bench, you could probably even think about selecting different attorneys within their firm to not have the same attorney. That's another option. But I think it would be a mistake to get away from what we consider. I've been doing this now for 6 years in New Hampshire. It's not close. This is the best firm. I'm going to recommend the best firm that we use. That's what I'm going to do. Thanks.
Now, Dan, and back to Kim.
So, I echo what Brian said about Jim O'Shaughnessy. He's really, really sharp guy. So what if we had said that if it pertains to the school board or its school board's actions, that in the least it needs to go to the chair before the superintendent can just go to the lawyer?
No, that's fine.
You know what I mean? That way there's at least
something.
one more layer at that point. That if it has to do with the school board or the school board's actions, that he has to at least talk to the chair. And the chair has to say, okay, or I need to bring it to the board. I'm just trying to find something.
Me personally, I think you're on the right page here, Dan, but I just, again, we're in the business, a couple lawyers in the room here, but in that case, nothing's gonna happen that they have to know like that day.
Right.
So you
Right.
should, the
I'm
chair
just-
should call the board and say, hey, this is what's going on.
Right.
You'll get 5 of us.
But I mean, maybe include the
Okay.
chair include the chair.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I'm trying
Oh,
to.
I'd get the chair in the thing.
We're trying to
absolutely.
word it right? You guys want to word it right, so we're trying to do that in a way that it's not handcuffing him.
Yeah.
Not allow him to do that, but at the same time, like I said, I guess maybe the verbiage is if it has to do with the board or the board actions,
There you go.
then it needs to go to the chair. The chair will decide whether we need to call a meeting or not.
In consultation with the chair, maybe that's the language?
Would that work? Not hearing any yes or no about that.
Well, again, Sue, I would hope that.
Kim's turn, it's
I would
Kim's
ho-
turn, sorry.
You said you didn't, I was trying to answer, you didn't give me yes or no, so.
I'm sorry, Kim's been patient.
I do not understand why you would not just have the board make that decision. If it were something that were that pressing, the board comes together every 2 weeks, or a special meeting could be
There you go.
called at the chair's request, whenever.
There you go.
I don't think it should be just the chair that makes that decision. If it's something that's of that timely in nature, then it would involve the day-to-day operations. I can't think of an instance where the board would have to enter into some sort of legal counsel in a matter of a day or an hour. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I would prefer not to see that delegated to the chair.
Can I, just on that point?
I'm gonna let you speak, and then it's Lee's turn.
Yeah, quickly, sometimes it's good to get legal advice before you do the wrong thing, right? So when you're thinking about something and hey, we're just gonna give you good advice and make recommendations. This is what our attorney is saying before you make the mistake, and then we have to clean up something that we didn't do correctly. That's why we do that, all right? So if we suspect, Kathy's been around a long time, a lot of people have been around a long time, but they're around 6 years now. We have new members, and sometimes we get down a road and we're going the wrong way, and sometimes it's good to have legal advice to help get you back to where you should be. And that's really why it's good to have that option. It's not anybody suing the board, it's giving the board advice about what they should do or not do. And sometimes people don't like that because they have their own idea about what they want to do, but it's not following the law, and I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying, it's good if we have the advice to do the right thing. Right? That's why we ask, we check all the time. And, it's not really smart, even for me personally, to ask for legal advice and then not follow it. Like they tell me occasionally. And I don't always hear what I want to hear, right? They sometimes tell me, no, that's not right, do this. So, and then we follow it. So that's just my last, and thank you for the chance to respond.
Lee?
So past performance is certainly no indication of future performance, but, and last year was a little unique. On how many occasions last year did you seek legal counsel, approximately?
Involving board business?
In district, school board, school operations district.
Geez, I don't know the number off the top of my head. It's not in between every 2 weeks. I mean, there was only a handful of times that
20,
had anything
30,
to do
less
with.
than that?
It's not just me, though. See, we have to initial
you've
off,
gotta-
so
yeah, there's
special ed calls, Nancy calls. You're saying me
personnel
personally? I
calls.
don't have as many occasions as people think. I mean, that's been kind of blown out and exaggerated in a major way. There are times when I don't
But
have a choice.
what I'm trying to gauge is
A necessity?
the necessity of it, and is notification and consultation with the chair sufficient? I mean, if we're doing this once every week, we probably have a bigger problem. If we're doing it once every 3 months, I think I'm comfortable with just consultation with the chair.
Yeah. Well, I think the other, if I can, right? I think the other part about this, all right?
Danny?
I'd like to make a motion to amend Kelly's motion, that recommendation to allow the superintendent to seek legal counsel when necessary, and if it has to do with the board or board actions, to consult with the chair.
Kathy, have you got that written down?
You got all
I
that?
have it well enough, thank you.
Can we hear a second? And then I'll entertain some discussion. Second, Kelly's gonna second. Now I'll open it up for some discussion on the motion, on the amended motion, the amendment, which is that piece of it. Brian, I saw you shaking your head, so
Okay.
go ahead, bud.
Lee, it does happen so rare, which is why you want a board vote. Okay?
Fair enough.
Nothing is going to happen that, there's a 99% chance you can wait for a full board meeting. In the rare chance that you want to call a special meeting,
Can't call
there
special
is
meetings,
no
emergency.
way you're not going to get 5 people when it involves your board.
Yeah, be an emergency meeting, right?
In emergency meeting, technically, so.
but there's some
And all I'm saying, yes, you go through the chair, and I would hope that the chair, for matters of that nature, I'm not talking about day-to-day operations of legal things. That is completely up to them. I'm talking about the 2 or 3 things that may happen a year that the board, and only the board, should be saying yes or no.
Is that wording all right for you with that has to do with the school board or school board actions, I guess?
Yes,
Is
but
that-
I want the board. I want, not up to the chair. I want,
Well, who's gonna call a meeting?
you're the chair.
No, so you gotta let me know. Somebody's gotta let me know that we need to have a meeting. So wouldn't the superintendent?
No.
No, it's what, his motion is to give you the authority
Not to
solely,
have-
the authority to do whatever basically you want as the chair in consultation with the superintendent.
That's it.
No,
That's
it
what his
is.
motion is.
That's what his motion is.
that what
Is-
your
is that-
intent
is
is,
that-
is
is
that I
that
do
your
whatever
That's
to
my
give-
intent. I'm trying to draw,
There you go.
we started out really broad, and then we
Trying to
went
narrow
really
it in.
tight. I'm trying to get it Somewhere in the middle.
He's going down the right road.
I'm not trying to,
Let the superintendent speak now, and then Lee.
And my intent is going to be to get you the best advice, no matter how I have to do it. So however this is worded, if I have to go through the SAU to get you good advice, I will. I'm going to get you the best advice from legal when we think we're not doing what we should be doing. Right? That's what you pay me to do.
Okay, let's
To
keep
help-
a,
To work together, governance team, that's what you pay me to do. And Brian, you know, because you lived it, right? Did we talk a lot, right?
We talked a lot, and
Probably more than you wanted to. Maybe.
whatever. So, and I will take it to my grave that there's nothing that happened in this room while I chaired that this board did that wasn't illegal or improper. There was enough counsel going back and forth. But everything I did, I made sure that I was talking to counsel. That's all. And I believe that this board should maintain that authority. That's all.
let's speak to the amendment if we can. Lee?
Yes, I want to make a comment, but I want to make sure I understand the amendment. Kathy, could you read it back, please?
Sure, I'll give it my best shot. Mr. Guide, motion to amend the motion to recommend the motion to allow the superintendent to seek legal counsel when necessary and when the firm most appropriate. And I'm paraphrasing here, to, if it pertains to school board, to the school board or school board actions, it will be done in consultation with the chair.
So Brian, to your concern, I think the spirit of the amendment is along the lines of what you're asking, right? So if it involves the school board or school board actions, it'd be done in consultation with the chair.
Who would call a meeting for the board?
No,
So you,
no, she's not, the chair doesn't have to call a meeting.
In
for
this, in the
amendment.
motion, that's what I
in the
want.
motion it
But
doesn't, but I
she
take
can
the
if she wants
spirit.
to.
I take the spirit of that
That's how I took the spirit of it too, Lee, to be honest
to
with you. That's what-
indicate
I
that,
wouldn't
or at
just
least
go
allude to it.
Stumbling off into the dark.
And I would trust in the chairman to.
To call
make
the
a s-
meeting.
To make a sound judgment call, at the very least to provide notification to the board that such seeking of legal counsel is taking place.
We wanna do board business at the board level,
Correct.
You got it.
right?
Yeah.
You don't, in public, with the TVs on, and live stream going, all of that great stuff, with a minute taker, that's the record of the meeting, to be as transparent as we possibly can be, correct? We are agreed with that, I think we have consensus on that.
Great.
It's not in the back room, it's not over the phone, it's, right? So. Here's where we're at. Tim, to the motions amendment.
I agree with what you just said, which is why I'm not in agreement with delegating that authority to the chair. That has to be in consultation with the board. You do not want to delegate the board's authority to the chair. The chair has no authority without the board behind the chair. So if you essentially delegated the board's authority to the chair by that amendment. I am speaking as, again, from a selectman's experience point of view,
Yeah.
that is not done on a board to delegate the authority of the board to the chair. That's what you're doing in this amendment, and I'm just not for it. It's nothing
Okay, so-
personal.
Okay.
It is, I would
Okay.
not be for it with any chair.
Okay, so we've got that, we have that on the table. Mrs. Doobie, Steph,
So I'd like to make an amendment
Well-
to the motion.
so we're gonna
Yeah,
amend
we
the
have an
amendment.
amendment.
Let's vote this amendment if we
Okay.
could, yay or nay, and then I would certainly recognize you again. Is there any other discussion about Dan's amendment to this original motion? If not, I'm gonna call for a vote. All in favor of the amendment?
Got it, thank you.
Opposed? Five,
Thank you.
4. All right, so now we have an amended motion.
Yes, now you need to vote on the
I know,
amended motion. Okay,
I know.
thank you.
So now, we have an amended motion. Read it back through if you can, please, for the
I will
public.
try, yes. The amended motion is for the the school board to allow the superintendent to seek legal counsel when necessary and with the firm most appropriate. If matters pertain to the school board or require school board actions, it will be done in consultation with the chair.
All I can tell you, as I believe Brian did last year, as I believe those chairs did in previous years, they would seek advice. They would not do anything that would put this organization in jeopardy, in legal jeopardy. So I believe that I would absolutely seek the best advice. I'd seek Brian's advice. He was here last year running this board. I'd seek other boards who have chairs. That's all I can tell you. That's how I feel about it. Kim?
Last year, this board did not delegate that authority to the chair. The board took the authority as a board in consultation with the superintendent. I just want to clarify that. Last year, this was not how this board operated. This would be a change from last year's operating. If you review the minutes from last year, you'll note that.
I don't have those with me, so I'll take your, I believe she's telling the truth, so. Comment, Brian.
Okay, well, along those lines, if you remember, that's how that whole default thing, I brought it to the board, and the board said, authorize, go meet with
We
two
did.
different attorneys. So everything went through the board.
That's correct. We
Yeah.
did permit the chair to seek a couple other pieces of advice other than from,
And I'm also confident in Mrs. Sherman that, along the same lines, that I didn't, to the best of my knowledge, sign anything without board authority, even though anything,
I'm
contracts.
talking about any contracts. That
Yeah.
was also different than in
Yeah.
preceding
okay, let's
years.
stay on, I got you, with you. All right, any other thoughts before we vote this? We have a long agenda and another meeting, so can we move this along? Lee, have you got some new information to add or new thought?
I just want to understand Kim's point. So the board authorized the chair to also?
No.
No, last year, the chair was not authorized to do anything just by the chair and the superintendent. The chair had to get authorization from the board in order to proceed with legal counsel.
Okay, so this motion doesn't change that.
No.
No, this motion does change that.
It goes
Yeah,
back, it went
absolutely
back
does.
to how it's the template or the boilerplate that we have. We go back to the beginning with a new board in place. What do we want to do?
I think I understand what Lee's asking, if I'm okay. That was two different actions. So there was the reorganization action that Kim's referring to. There was a second action taken later on where the board authorized the chair to seek legal opinion. In addition, a second legal opinion. You took a vote, remember, and you allowed Brian to go seek.
No,
Yeah, you did.
No,
That's one.
Did do
on,
that.
on the default, but that's not what we're discussing right now. We're talking about in general.
No, I know, but the question, I think, is, the chair was authorized to seek legal opinions on his own.
No, not without a board vote.
I just said that, and it happened at a later meeting with the vote. That's what I'm talking about. You authorized him to go do that, at one time and whenever it was.
That is correct, but that's not what this motion.
What was it?
Now
Oh,
the
yeah.
chair can do that without a vote of the board. That's what this motion is saying.
No,
No.
that's not what it's saying.
Yes, it is.
No,
No, it's
Yes,
not.
absolutely not.
Yes, it is.
Exactly what I'm saying.
That's exactly what it says.
No,
Yes,
it's
it
telling,
is.
it's telling me that if I'm seeking legal opinion that has to do with the board or board actions, I need to do it in consultation with the chair.
Exactly.
That's what it's saying. So I think you're wordsmithing this in the wrong direction.
That's exactly, that was my intent, let's put it that way. I didn't intend it any other way.
Okay, so we have an amended motion on the floor. Steph, yeah.
Thank you. I think that the difference in the way that Brian handled the meeting was that he did bring everything before the board. So I think that there is a concern that some of those discussions aren't going to be brought before the board.
Why, okay.
So, well, the way that this amendment reads, it wouldn't necessarily come before the board, right? So,
how
that's
I
a big difference, but that's a huge divergence
So
from
that's
the
an
way that it was.
interpretation that I don't hand. I'm not interpreting it, this,
But it speaks to the
amended
school board
motion that
chair and not the school board. So, I would like to make an amendment to the motion.
Can you do that again?
So amend
That-
the
that-
amended
The
motion.
motion is now amended, so yes.
Yes, she can make an emotion.
I would like to add a phrase at the very end, that in consultation with the school board chair, that the school board chair, if necessary, will call an emergency meeting.
If necessary,
Call an emergency meeting. Yep,
the chair will call.
an emergency meeting. Yes, ma'am.
I'll second it for discussion.
Please, seconding it for discussion. Discussion?
So-
Lee?
I like where you're going with it. If necessary is really open-ended. Is there anything that precludes any member of the school board from calling a special meeting or requesting a special meeting?
No.
Okay, so what if we changed, if necessary, with the chair providing appropriate and timely school board notification? Then at least all members are aware that consultation is being sought, and we have, as individuals, the opportunity to request a special meeting.
I think that that adds an extra layer.
It
That's
does.
not necessary.
Okay.
I think, and I understand what you're saying, but I think that I personally am more comfortable with the board making those decisions as a whole. I think that this body, seeing as it's changed
No.
recently, I think,
This is a puzzle. You have to do
I'm
it.
listening. I'm trying to get the policy book out. We have a policy book, an updated policy book.
so I think that I personally would feel more comfortable with it coming before the board. I think that shows a level of transparency. That shows a level of, everyone working together to discuss the particular issue that may need, some advice. So I personally would be in favor of adding that section at the end with respect to the school board chair, and I'll change it to just calling an emergency meeting. Not if necessary, just calling an emergency meeting. If that clarifies it,
So you're taking out,
if necessary. Because it puts the responsibility back on the school
Lee, are
board.
you willing to, so,
So, I just want to
yeah,
tell
we're
you
gonna
about a
back
procedural
everything
thing,
back up here.
if you don't mind. An emergency meeting, the statutes are specific about what constitutes an emergency meeting. An emergency meeting to seek legal counsel may not qualify depending on the circumstances.
If we can call an emergency meeting to get counsel's advice.
Right, an emergency
I'm not
meeting.
sure it
right,
follows
It doesn't.
It almost requires an
Statutory.
emergency meeting,
to discuss the,
yeah.
I
I'm better
understand
with the if
Stephanie's
necessary.
spirit, but,
If necessary is better language,
yeah.
but that's kind of obvious.
But it's open-ended then.
If you need a special, if you need an emergency
Still
meeting, obviously you
can't
call them.
believe that any one of us sitting in this chairman position, if we vote to accept this, wouldn't think carefully about what they needed to do there and seek everyone's advice on this board and call a meeting and say, wait. Let's hold the phone here and make sure we're all set, because we want to go the correct route. But not on the day-to-day stuff, but I don't see this, I don't see this happening ever, but maybe. Maybe?
I agree with you, not on the day-to-day stuff, but I think if what you're saying is that even though it's not going to be necessarily spelled out here, that you'll call, or you'll bring it before the board, were there to be some discussion, I'm comfortable with that. If that's what you're saying, I'm comfortable with that. I think the way that it's been done is incredibly helpful for folks that are at home.
Of course.
It's important to know what's happening at the school board level.
Oh, we've got people
And
interested now, so let's
We have a lot
keep
of
them
people interested,
informed
which is
and educated.
fantastic. And I think it's important to have that come before the board, not just have it be a decision that is, while I'm sure it's very well-intended, whatever you may decide.
It might not be in an emergency meeting. It
Right.
might fall just likely, we gotta make sure it's on this agenda that we're gonna have tomorrow. We might be adding
People
an
on this
agenda
board
item
need to
in
know.
emergency. So, how
Thank
do you
you.
want, what do you two wanna do about your amendment?
Can you read it back, Stephanie?
Could you read it back, Kathy?
Sure. There was an add to, the motion by Mrs. Doobie was to add at the very end of the amended motion that in consultation with the school board chair, in consultation with the school board chair and that the school board chair, if necessary, will call an emergency meeting. That was seconded by Mr. Doobie.
I'm good.
Is that accurate?
All right, any other questions or concerns on that amended statement? Jen?
That part about the emergency meeting, what you just said, that it might not apply, is emergency meeting the right kind of meeting?
It might not be. It might not have to be an emergency meeting. Emergency meeting, if it's one of our, it could be a scheduled meeting, but of course, we would discuss.
To steal with what Jen's saying, that you probably should put emergency or special meeting.
Yeah.
Special
That's-
meeting, thank
yeah.
you.
Or even call a meeting, in parentheses,
Yeah.
special, emergency, or
s-
regular,
Or schedule, regular schedule.
as necessary.
Yeah, the regular ones are all
It's
posted.
just, you got everything
Or a
covered.
regular posted meeting.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Steph,
That's not fine.
are you two, you're the writers of the amendment.
I'm comfortable with that.
Good.
So we're calling it, or we'll call a meeting, and then in parentheses,
Special or emergency.
special or emergency. Okay,
It could fall into a regular schedule,
and then you wouldn't need to
Which wouldn't
schedule
be
it because it was
necessary.
already.
already posted regularly.
Yeah.
Kim? All right, are we good with that change? Then I'm gonna let Kim.
How is an
to
emergency
it.
meeting called? I don't see anything about the calling of an emergency meeting in policy.
Oh, it's a statute, so what,
Okay, so it is a statute, that's fine, I can look it up.
All right, any other questions about Stephanie's amended statement? If not, we'll vote the amendment.
Could we
Do
have
anyone
amend-
hear it again?
Yeah.
Yep. Could we hear it again, Mrs. Wood?
the addition to the amended motion, which was, you want me to go all the way back to the beginning?
No, we're voting just this amended piece, right?
But the whole part of it.
Mrs. Doobie motioned
To allow the superintendent to seek legal counsel when necessary with the firm most appropriate. And if it pertains to school board or school board actions, it will be done in consultation with the school board chair. And if necessary, the school board chair will call a meeting, special or emergency. Seconded by Mr. Doobie. I'll
So
clean
that's
it up
the
a little
piece-
better, but
That's the piece we're adding in. Okay? All set, we'll go to that. All right, we're good? All right, all in favor of adding that amended statement to the amended motion? Say aye or raise your hand, please. 8. Opposed? 0? Well, I mean 1. I'm sorry, Dan.
Sorry.
It is only 8:30 and I'm losing it already. All right, 8-1. All right, so now we're back to a fully amended statement.
Correct.
Are we ready to vote the entire motion now, the amended? Hearing no other discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Opposed? 1. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Moving on to H, bonding. Bonding, we're looking for a recommendation to bond the treasurer, when we get one, and the assistant treasurer that we've just re-upped, as required by statute and the Department of Revenue. And I think in your packet, if you go through, is there a bonding statement in here, Kathy? Did you
I
put a,
don't think that there's a bonding statement. It's
Okay.
It's determined by statute.
it's a statute. Okay. So Kelly is moving that, to hear a second.
I'll second.
I'm gonna let Sarah have the better name in the minutes. Any questions or discussion about the bonding? You understand what we're doing there? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion for, regarding bonding? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, all 9 of us. Thank you. Moving on to bank depository. We have, I believe, been using TD North, is that correct? TD Bank, and we're recommending to reappoint or appoint TD Bank
So moved.
to be our district bank. Kelly, Danny, you're recommending and making a motion. Can I get a second? Kelly's making the second. Discussion about the bank depositories. If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the bank depository? Looks like 9-0 on that. Thank you very much. Moving on to policy DFA, which regards investment, and I'm pretty sure that one is in your folder if you want to go back to the little packet. If you're wondering who puts these packets together, for our new members, it's Mrs. Belcher who puts these packets together for us. So this is regarding investments to be reviewed on an annual basis per district auditors and the RSAs, and there are no changes. We have to vote this policy, I believe, every year. Or authorize that we're gonna do it every year. And I don't think there were any changes to it.
There are no changes, right?
There are no changes. But you'll see the last statement is we're supposed to review this annually. So this is our annual re-upping this policy.
So do we need a motion because we reviewed it? I don't,
But just for the review of it, I would say. You're not amending it or changing it,
yeah.
but the policy does require that you look at it on an annual basis.
So you need a motion saying we looked at it? Okay, so moved.
So Dan is, that we would continue to follow policy DFA with no changes to this particular investment policy. Do I have a second? I'm gonna let Sarah have the second. Questions or concerns? Without us getting too much into this pretty strict business legal ease here in this statement. This is all to protect the, what I call the organization, to protect us and everyone here about making sure we have our investments reviewed. If there is no concerns, I'm going to call for a vote then. All in favor of policy DFA, that we have reviewed it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. Opposed? Abstain. So it's 8-0-1.
Simply because I haven't read it.
That's fine, Lee. Okay, then we'll move it on to the next thing on our list, which is policy EI, I think that is. Risk management, and that's the same thing. It requires a review annually. So that's in your packet as well.
This one I didn't print, I meant to print this one in color. If you look, there is a strikeout in the third paragraph.
I see that. It
And
says,
then the last paragraph is new language.
This is for first read?
It would be for first read because there are
Oh,
changes
okay.
associated with it.
so this is for first read. Propose that we look at the changes and then,
Doesn't this need to go to the policy committee first?
Doesn't necessarily have to, no.
This isn't part of Primex?
yeah.
Jeff is here. You want to ask him any
Jeff is
questions?
here if you'd like to ask him any questions about risk management.
Do you want to ask some
Do they have this?
questions of the business manager who takes care of this? You want to
Sure.
pull him up to the table? We can do that. And you have in your packet, yeah, you have the Primex data as well,
Coverage declarations.
all the coverage, et cetera, there for you. If consensus of the board to let Mr. Dowd,
Yeah.
come on up, Mr. Dowd, and can you give us a brief few sentences on what this is all about, why we do this and what it's about?
I have the privilege first of saying good evening and welcome to our new members. So nice to see new faces. When we go through our policies every year, we have an opportunity to look at them, and this is my first time coming through looking at this policy, and when I did so, I noticed that really we have a call for some level of assumption of risk, and under the policy, the way that it was written, some requirement for insurance. And not, I don't know if everyone here knows, but we do not have insurance through Primex. We're a member of a shared risk pool that allows us to maximize our benefit under New Hampshire's municipal immunity statutes. So as a result of that, we've had some very good luck with Primex and that risk pool, and they've been able to offer us a very high level of protection. I want to make sure that our policy ties to that. Since you do review it every year, it would be my preference to make sure that this risk management policy is clear, and that's why the last paragraph, that we may participate in a pooled risk management program that would comply with the RSA 5B and related statutes, in order that we not be out of policy not having insurance.
Okay, Kim, a question?
Where did this last paragraph language originate from?
I probably looked at another district that had Primex and pulled that, found the language to be satisfactory, modified it a little bit, but wanted to make sure that we were covered.
So, do you know what district it was? Did you,
Might have been
I'm just kind of surprised that we didn't go to the New Hampshire School Board Association model policies for this. I'm not saying there's anything wrong, but personally, I'd like to see what their policy says before we add this paragraph in and change our policy, because I'd like to bring our policies as much into conformance with theirs, unless there seems to be some reason not to. So that's my concern with it,
Would
adding
we-
a paragraph
Yeah,
like
would
that.
we be at any risk, Jeff, to send this over to policy committee? Policy committee will get up and going, have this be kind of at the top of their list, have them review it and bring it back, i.e. go over, New Hampshire School Board's policy, language, et cetera, and then bring it back again for first read? Or are we up against, we've got to do it?
If that's the will of the board, I'm fine with it. However, I would not want this policy to go past this board this evening for review or reaffirmation without a significant notation. Then I want to make sure that we are complying with and maximizing our shield of liability by having that in here. I did look at the New Hampshire School Board Association policy. It's significantly more lengthy and
It's what, lengthy?
it's significantly more lengthy and involved. For our purposes here, I think this satisfies what we would need to be in compliance with, without being in violation of our own policy. If you wanted to adopt it tonight, send it to policy committee, that's fine. If you wanted to simply look at it, observe, understand that we are part of a shared risk pool with other municipal clients, so be it, you've been notified, and I don't want to be in violation of the policy.
Brian?
Aren't we currently
Yeah.
insured, and what is?
We are a member of Primex, we are covered through Primex, and so
Okay.
we call that insurance. It's not insurance. We refer to it as insurance because that shared risk pool that we participate in operates in a similar way that insurance operates, but it's really a shared risk pool. It's not an insurance company.
For example, what aren't we covered for?
Pretty much
What
any
aren't we covered for?
liability, workers' compensation.
That's in your packet.
Yeah, we have a whole
Yeah, the whole package.
declaration.
I saw that, but so you're telling me, as we speak right now, we're not covered?
We are covered.
Oh, we are covered.
We
Right.
aren't covered.
We're covered, but we're in violation of the policy because the policy doesn't say anything about
About
pooled risk management
Right.
So we're just in violation of.
of our own
Because
policy.
of our own
But
policy.
we're covered.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so what's the?
I understand he had to add that in because it wasn't in there because we are part of a shared pool.
We have there's a sentence under the old portion that's at the Borderlands Plan Funded Program of self-insurance. Is that clear enough to indicate to me that we're part of a risk management pool? I don't know, I wanted to make it clear that that's what we have, and that's what we are. In this past year, we've been, I don't want to say the beneficiary, but certainly we've seen the value of being able to maintain our municipal immunity.
Dan, then back to Kim.
Could we accept it for first read and with the caveat of sending it to policy?
No, that's not how the policy
That's
reads.
not how the process works in policy, so that would be kind of going,
Because I am in favor of policy looking at this.
I am too,
So,
but I wanna make sure we have everybody's covered
so,
here.
so I guess my question is if we send this to policy, the only thing we're in violation of is our own policy.
Yes, Cal,
Which we're all aware of now.
Yeah.
Brought to our attention, so.
aware that we
so
need to get
I think
in
it's
line.
appropriate to send it to policy and have them go through it.
I agree.
And if you do,
Steph,
Forgive me.
I had Kim was up next, actually. Can
Oh,
you
go
wait,
ahead.
Steph?
Of
Kim,
course.
I'm sorry. It was your.
If you want to do this tonight, what you have to first do as a board is waive the 2-week limitation, and then you have to have a 2/3 majority to enact this, and it would be considered an emergency procedure to adopt this policy. You can't, this is just not a simple reaffirming of a policy, you're changing the policy.
Right.
So
Right,
that's
so-
the procedure
Just
you would
send it
have to
back.
take.
But if it's just for first
a
read,
first read.
then, I mean,
I'm not asking to adopt it.
you're not adopting it tonight, it's
Yeah.
just a first read tonight. So when we adopt it, because we've not put it through policy committee, we would need to.
But I don't wanna change the procedure, so.
I don't wanna change the procedure either. It just mucks it up, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Steph,
I was gonna say that if we do send it back to policy, forgive me, what was the verbiage that you wanted to make sure that was added on there?
Oh, that we have, and it's in blue, it's actually in the
Okay.
bottom, it's not in
It's
blue.
not blue on ours.
It's
It's
italic.
italics.
Okay,
It's not
okay.
italics.
Italics, yeah.
The third paragraph down, the board would be stricken and
Yep.
then may, and then that entire last paragraph.
Okay, thank you.
And that speaks to the pooled risk management program.
Thank you.
so what are we thinking? Are we more confused than when you arrived? Dan,
I guess I'll make a motion to send this back to policy.
Second?
Steph seconding it. Any other discussion? We get this to policy immediately, get it on the front burner. Makes sense?
Well, I guess after that motion, would the board like to make the motion to waive said policies the way it's written until it gets back?
So are
We
you
all know we're
suggest-
violating it, I get it, but.
So
should
are
we
you
waive it?
suggesting we vote first to send it back to policy and then make another motion that we're
To
waiving?
Just waive it, yeah.
Think we need to do that?
I don't know, I'm asking.
What are we waiving?
I don't think we
What
need
are we
to.
waiving?
The violation.
The violation.
yeah, the policy police aren't gonna come. It'll be all right.
They might. I'm just throwing it out there. It's fine.
Well, as we found from legal counsel last year, it is not wise to not follow your own policies. Because should you not, when somebody else has legal issue with the board, they will point back to the fact that you did not follow your own policies.
You have something in place now,
Have
right?
it in place, though.
But you're modifying the policy, this is not an affirmation of that.
Well, we're not
this
modifying
policy.
anything right
No,
now.
but you have one in place right now. This is,
This
you're
is not the
modifying,
one
this,
that's in
you're
place.
modifying it. You chose not to, that's fine, but you do have one in place.
Right,
It
we
just
have one.
doesn't,
Right,
it's just not
Not
sufficient.
the language that
exactly.
we have a policy in place.
Right.
Steph.
Can I make a motion that we send it back to policy?
Right,
so
we
can
did.
move
We
on?
got that going. You
Okay, forgive me.
seconded it.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, I know. So are we good? Can we vote this motion?
Sure.
Right, all in favor of sending, this particular policy back, getting it right up at front and get it taken care of it for us? We would be voting now aye or yay. That looks unanimous. All right, so we're sending that back. Thank you very much. Now we are on, we're getting there. We are on L, School Board Ethics Statement. So again, in here, down in the pile someplace, yes, is a school board ethics and expectations. We've had it for quite a while. And it goes along with policy. The policy is,
Policy's BXA,
B-
that just says that you will have
right,
an ethics statement.
right, that we will have a statement so that you've got it in front of you. Yep. So, we'll be looking for, to be reviewed and then signed by members on an annual basis, so. If you need to review that yourself, this is, particularly new members, want to take it and bring it back in signed to Mrs. Belcher, that's fine. If you're signing it now and willing to pass it over, I'll give it to Mrs. Belcher. I don't think we need to, but we're reviewing it and signing it. I don't think we need a motion to review and sign. Like I said, if you want more time with it, please take it, review it, bring it back, get it to Mrs. Belcher, that would be most helpful. All right, we're at the end I had a couple things I wanted to do, and that was, and let us, our board members, new board members see our committees. Yep, meeting dates, yes. And I wanna get this sent around, I'm gonna put it in now. These are the committees that we serve on, and what I did was I had Mrs. Belcher just put in who's on the committees right now. All our names are in there. But I'd like to do this in real time. If you want to still say on safety, leave your name on there, if you're already on there. If you want to be on safety committee, and I think, Mrs. Belcher, did you put the description of the committees in there for
No,
people? Or did you give it to the 3 new people already?
I have not seen Lee to give him his packet, but I
Okay.
believe Mrs. Silva and Mrs. Mockamer have.
If you
theirs.
know what committees you'd like to be on right now, or you don't want to be on it, add your name, take off your name, because we've got stuff we need to get going on. Where Dr. Farah mentioned, we got April 15th lurking, we've got work we need to do. I've had discussion many times with Mrs. Silver and about, we have work we need to do. And our committee work is very, very important, that if you can possibly participate in committee work, it would be most helpful. It's where the work gets, it's where a lot of the stuff happens, and then we report all that committee work back to the board. So I'm just gonna pass that around and let you take a look at it. If you're not willing to, don't wanna do it now, and you wanna reach out to me tomorrow or email me, or you can, but if you know right now, I'd just like to keep it going if we could. Yes, Kim, a question about that before we move on?
Do you want us to strike our name?
If you don't want to be on it anymore, strike your name. If you want to still be on that committee, leave it on. If you want to be on another committee, add your name.
I'd like to have a little discussion about strategic planning committee. I think Brian and I spoke about this, and I don't want to speak for you, Brian, but I feel that the chair and the vice chair should be leading up the strategic planning committee, because it is the direction that this board will take in the next 5 years. The plan is being drafted right now, and I think we would be remiss if we didn't have the leadership of the board 100% behind that plan and come up to speed on that plan. So for that reason,
Okay.
I feel that those 2 people, that's my opinion, I'd like to hear what the rest of the board has to say on that.
I couldn't have said it better.
Thank you.
Well, I have faith in you two. So I was perfectly happy with you.
Okay.
You were it, right? It was only 2 of you.
Well,
There
it's,
was no other board members on that committee, right? None of the rest of us were on it.
that's correct.
But you've heard what Dr. Farah feels, so if you think it should be the chair and the vice chair, and
You didn't say put other people's names, only your own, right?
put only your own. Yes, you were in charge of your name. Okay, if I could keep going then, unless anyone has something they want to say on, yes, Steph?
I think it stands to reason, though, that, if we've got the leadership now changed with you two. I think it makes sense that you kind of represent at those strategic planning meetings.
Okay.
So, yeah, and, take the will of the people with you. So, yeah,
Take that under advisement.
Absolutely.
thank you.
So if you can, great, that would just help us along. All right, meeting dates and times. You'll see at the end of this agenda, it says recommendations to hold school board meetings on the 1st and 3rd Thursdays of the month at 7:30 at the superintendent's office. Waive the July meetings and the first meeting in August unless needed. And hold a meeting scheduled for the 4th week in August on the 23rd of August, just before school is back in session, because students start school on August 30th. And finally, to reserve the right to amend the meeting schedule as needed. That's the recommendation that we have that we've used. Can I hear a motion
What day is August 30th?
to recommend?
Motion.
There you go.
Sarah's motioning,
I'm motion.
Second.
Yep.
Brian's seconding.
That's right, I did see it.
Questions? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Looks like that's 9-0.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
So I meant to speak to something, but happened to be looking at that sheet when it went around for committees. I'd like to throw this out there and see what the board thinks. I think that the board should establish a committee with the intent to review the articles of the agreement. And the committee, in my mind, would be a member from each town from the school board, and a member from each town, whether it be a selectman or a selectman designee, and then one extra member, so there's 9. And the goal of the committee, in my opinion, now I want to discuss this obviously, is to update and maybe revise and just go through line by line each article with this committee with the intent of having a proposal to the school board on changes that they think are needed, because it is somewhat outdated. There's some funding issues in the, financial aid issues that aren't even there anymore. Some of the busing issues can be looked at, whatever. But I just think, even if it comes of, nothing comes of it, I think it should be looked at. And I can't, do we know when the last time it was even revised?
When the articles of
Yeah,
agreement
I
were
can't,
revised,
I don't remember the last amendment.
I'm
I know
not
you,
sure they've
you did
ever-
one, but I don't remember
tried.
when the last date was.
Yeah, but not,
No,
you mean
no.
to actually be voted in.
I can speak to.
What do we, is that date important? I mean, we can have that researched if we
I was
need
just
to.
wondering, but anyways, that,
Ask them.
I just think that it needs to be looked at
It's in her book.
as a whole.
It's in your book, I think, last page.
It's in the book. I think I'm very funny.
1965.
Farah doesn't think I'm-
Mr. Stoken did
I know.
Well, that was when it was made,
Am I?
but it's been revised.
Right.
It has been revised, and there have been several attempts for revision that did not pass. So just because it just shows the last time it was revised
Right,
does
right,
not mean
No,
that
no,
there
I
were
know
not
that.
other
That's-
motions
yeah,
to
that's what I just
move
said,
that.
yeah.
Originally approved in April of 64, revised 1970, revised 1978, revised 1994, revised 1999.
So 99.
But to Dr. Farah's point, I think we could research the failed attempts, and that may
Yeah,
be part of the
yeah.
discussion
Right,
too.
exactly, but that's part of what the committee will do, right?
So let's talk about the committee. Let's stay within that for a minute.
So,
Do you want to add that as a well, we can.
I'd like to,
But
that's
I'd
why I
like to
brought
put
it up
that-
now.
You want to add it, you want to talk about it now, you want to talk about it April 5th?
I don't care, we can talk about it right now. If the board wants to.
Consensus? Yes, now or later, and put it as an agenda item?
Agenda item.
Add it as an agenda item on the April 5th meeting, will be posted, and people from the public will be aware that we're gonna speak about
Sure.
making a committee about articles of agreement, and then have a chance to prepare if they wish to speak from their historical point of view.
Sure.
We do have people
Absolutely.
older than me
Oh, yeah?
that were here when I was here in 19, and so, you know,
Yeah,
think?
absolutely.
would be okay with that? Yes, Kim? Are you disagreeing, or you want to add
I'm
something?
not disagreeing, but if
Okay.
you're going to have that discussion, you need to have it within the context of what is gonna be required to get the strategic plan up and going for next year and into the year 1. There's an enormous amount of work that's still associated with that plan, and to bring on another committee with staffing from both, you know, the public and the board is adding, that committee is gonna be quite a lot of work, and we already know that we have other issues with the process for the CIP, and we also know that we have budget issues. So I'm not in disagreement, but if you're gonna take a look at adding another committee, you need to do it within the context of what else is really happening, and think about whether or not we can do that. I'm happy to have that discussion.
Right, and so you'd be happy to do that April 5th, we could put it as an agenda item and really dig into it a little bit?
Yeah.
Dig into the possibilities and bring up those points that are well-made points at that point, instead of having a meeting within the meeting. Yes?
Yeah, I'm good.
So, Mrs. Belcher, would
It is
you,
on.
in your little action item list,
I do, thank you.
we will make sure that's part of it. All right, if there's nothing else to come before this particular organization, yes?
Sorry, I'm not against having it on the agenda. I would think that the meeting on the 5th would be probably devoted to budget, so it may I would just think that would be the case.
We'll get it on as soon as we can, to get it rolling, because it's not, this is not a small task.
I'll have the renomination list for staff on the 5th. That'll be there.
So, let's say we'll get it on as soon as we can, because it does involve us having some discussion about how that would work, and I agree with human beings that have to be on the committee. Okay?
Are we at the point where I can make my motion to go into non-public, or should?
If you were ready, I was just gonna see if there's anything else, and then I was gonna turn to you.
I'd like to make a motion to go into non-public to discuss the resignation of the treasurer.
Second?
I'll second.
Would you like to call a reason for a statutory reason?
You wanna do something, it should be, for the new members,
91
see, there's a little
I think it's
template
C.
there. Is it C?
I think it's C.
91A:3, paragraph 2, section C.
See.
Thank you.
Can I clarify something about the resignation? I think it's pertinent to your vote before you decide to go into non-public.
All right, I'll let you speak.
So a resignation letter that expired, so there really is no resignation of the treasurer. It was never accepted. So you nominate a treasurer annually. So I'm not quite sure what the purpose of the discussion would be. But there is no resignation because the resignation was never accepted. The term expired and you're gonna nominate a new treasurer. That's
Kind of just
really,
gone away.
what?
It's kind of just gone away.
It expired.
I'll withdraw let me clarify my motion then. It pertains to the appointment of the new treasurer. It does not pertain to the resignation of the previous treasurer. My concern going into non-public pertains to the nomination of the new treasurer. Would that make sense, guys?
Withdraw your motion,
I will
rephrase your
withdraw
motion,
this
withdraw your second,
and say that I would like to go into non-public under the same,
under C as well.
under C,
Can I clarify
regarding
again?
the motion
That doesn't make
to,
sense.
regarding the appointment of a new treasurer.
That doesn't qualify as a non-public, and I guess we won't be having any
Yes.
discussion about the resignation of the previous one, right? Because we're not talking about a person, so whose reputation are we protecting about talking about a new nomination?
If I said the reputation of who we were protecting, then
No,
I would be remiss, would I not?
There's no name, there's no person.
Yes, there is.
There's a name.
There is a
A
name.
new person?
There is a name of, I don't wanna take it any further in a
Please
public
don't.
setting.
don't walk us down.
We don't want to.
I'm not going to,
We don't want to.
but
We're trying to get into
we're
non-public.
trying not to
That's
walk it
something
down.
Okay, so stop. There's a motion on the floor. And a second? Does everyone understand the motion?
Mr. Boyle, are you still seconding that
Yes.
motion, reframe?
Yes.
Thank you.
Does everyone understand Dr. Farr's motion? I'm gonna call for a
you
roll
read it
call,
again?
is how we usually do this. We
That's
poll,
correct.
and then we would ask the room to vacate, close the room down, turn the TVs off, all of that. And then,
Can you read the motion again?
yes, Jen, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, Mrs. Belcher?
I believe that Dr. Farr made a motion to go into non-public session under RSA 91A3, paragraph 2, section C. Matters which if discussed in public would likely adversely affect the reputation of any person as it pertains to the nomination of a new treasurer. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Wait,
Just a question before we vote on this. Earlier, I thought we didn't have a candidate for the treasurer position.
We don't.
That's correct.
That's
So
correct.
whose
I can't answer whose
Okay.
reputation that would be.
you can't reveal.
I guess if we didn't have a candidate,
Based on
we're
the
talking about no
information
one.
you have, you're
Yeah,
gonna make up
I'm gonna, yeah.
your mind.
The treasurer does have to work.
You want me to try this again?
Try it again.
Okay. I'd like to go into non-public
Wait, we're starting all over again?
Let's start all
I
over.
guess because
will
obviously-
I will withdraw my motion, you withdraw your second.
I'll
Why
withdraw
don't
my
you try
second.
it?
I'd like to go into non-public to discuss a matter that involves the treasurer's office and the treasurer's position. And it clearly is to protect a current employee's reputation. So it would be under 2C.
That's correct.
Discuss a matter that, could you, I missed
That's
that,
correct.
Brian.
I
Okay.
will second.
Discuss a matter that.
Now, the matter that,
I want to go into a non-public to protect a current employee's reputation that involves the dealings with the treasurer's position.
Kim, you're seconding that, so, right, so now, change the words a little bit here to protect everybody a little bit more. Are we clear on that? If not, yeah, if you are, I'll call for, Mrs. Belcher to call the roll. This is a poll vote. Go ahead when you're ready.
Was there a
Kim.
second to that one?
Yes, Kim seconded that one.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand that the motion was to go to non-public to discuss a matter to protect a current employee's reputation that involves the office of the treasurer?
Yes.
Okay. Are we ready for a poll vote?
When you're ready.
Okay. Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Doobie?
Yes.
Mrs. Doobie?
Yes.
Dr. Farah?
Yes.
Mr. Guide?
Yes.
Mrs. Markham?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes?
Mrs. Silva?
Yes.
And Mr. Ward?
Yes.
So I would ask our public to vacate. We are coming back.
On East Road. Okay, so back down.
No, no.
Hopefully it'll still be the 22nd.
I'm gonna sit down.
Is Dean live?
Dean, oh no, Dean.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Dean.
I'd like to make a motion to seal the minutes of the non-public.
Second.
And you need to state why we're it's
In the bold?
determined, yep,
Minutes,
determined.
minutes and decisions reached in non-public session shall be,
No,
Why,
it's the
it
underlined
is
part.
determined
the
that,
underlying one?
No, she underlined hers.
it is
Underline
determined.
no.
We have language we have to use if you're gonna. say
Somebody
determined.
underlined it.
Somebody underlined
The
something.
information likely would affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the public body itself, or render the proposed action ineffective or preclude.
No, it's just that first one. You're
That
good.
first part.
I got it,
I got it.
that's fine.
And then we do call for that.
Yeah, we'll call, roll call for that too. So I'm gonna call the roll for polling the board for sealing the non-public minutes.
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Doobie?
Yes.
Mrs. Doobie? Yes. Dr. Farah?
Yes.
Mr. Guide?
Yes.
Mrs. Markham?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes,
Mrs. Silva?
Yes.
And Mr. Ward?
Yes.
They are sealed.
all right. Now, I hate to do this to the public, but we're gonna call like a 5-minute recess so that some of the board can go use the bathroom and then we'll be back.
I know what the problem is. So any member of the board.
That's it.
Okay, we are back.
That's all I do, man. It's a joke.
Back, we're still on our reorganizational meeting. Did anyone want to go back to the tabled item? Yes, Mr. Guide.
I'll make the motion that we advertise for the treasurer's appointment position.
Second.
Do you guys have any, thanks for seconding it, parameter, like how long do you think we should advertise for that?
A couple weeks, right? Is it usually a week?
3 weeks, 2 weeks?
By the time it gets in the paper,
You want the newspaper?
We do 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Making that part of the motion, or we just consensus that we're gonna have it in
Consensus.
2 weeks?
Consensus.
So logistically, it goes in the newspaper in a couple of days. I'm not sure what the ads are, how we can get them in that way. I don't typically work with them. I do that for the legal notices. So there could be some time constraints as far as how soon that can be put in the newspaper and when it can be printed. So do you want, are you talking 2 weeks after it's been published? We'll look at, we'll look
I
at
would,
closing
so,
it.
so
We'll put a
I've
date in
done
the
some
newspaper.
stuff with the newspaper. I almost would do, so what I would do is I wouldn't put it in the newspaper for 2 weeks, cause that's gonna be like over $1,000.
Yeah, no,
No, no, no. I mean, is that with the closing, so that the ad will say that the position will accept applications up until a
Accept
certain date.
intent statements, intent
Okay.
letters by such and such a date.
Yeah, I would
You
aim
wanna
to
look
get
at a
it.
calendar and do it
I
that
would
way?
think that if you called tomorrow, you could get it in Sunday's paper and that would be good enough.
That's the big one.
Yeah.
That's the expensive version, the Sunday paper.
This is the only one most people read, so. That would be my opinion, but whatever the board wants to do.
ASAP works.
Then after we see the letters of intent, we'll set up an interview group, similar to what we did before, go through that, bring back to this board our nomination for appointment. We know we need one. It's a crucial part of this operation. We need to have a treasurer. We appreciate what the assistant treasurer is tried to do, but we definitely need a treasurer here. So, all right, all in favor then? Looks like 9-0.
Thank you.
All right, and that, I'm going to adjourn the reorganizational meeting and call to order the special meeting, which was supposed to been called to order at 8 o'clock. We're doing well. Do we need to take attendance again,
Don't believe so.
Madam Secretary? Do we need to pledge allegiance again?
We do not.
So because this is considered a special meeting, we have one topic on the agenda, and that is this transportation bid. And it should be in your packet. The information's in your packet.
Point of order.
Mr. Gary, are you presenting? Is anyone else presenting?
I think it was just me,
Okay,
Madam Chair.
just wondering. Oh, yes, Kim, sorry.
The chair did send out to the board 3 other items that were on this agenda. The default budget, committee reports, and the stress consultant.
Did I respond to
There
that?
are 4 items on this
Yep.
agenda.
I'll refer to policy BEDB. Superintendent and school board chair shall prepare all agendas for meetings of the board. Superintendent shall be responsible for publishing the agenda. Items to be placed on the agenda should be in the hands of the superintendent on or before the 7th day preceding the meeting. I received items 6 days before the meeting and 3 days before the meeting, after the special meeting had already been posted. That's your policy.
This is a special meeting that was posted. The agenda is subject to change.
Again, policy BEDB. We follow our policies, Dr. Farah.
However, if we can, please, finish this agenda, then I think we could talk about some other issues. But I would like to please let this transportation bid be presented.
Okay.
And then I will listen to some discussion. All right?
Okay, thank you for having me, Madam Chair. There are some new faces around the table, and I'd like to kind of recap of where we've been. So I'll just read through a list summarizing for the new faces up on the board. On November 2nd, I came to the board, requested a transportation consultant or funding to do so, to assist us with developing an RFP to meet an aggressive schedule to try to get a contract in place at the beginning of the calendar year. The board graciously granted us to be able to use a consultant to help us develop a really solid RFP. Back on the 18th of December, we were able to publish and advertise the bid documents. Okay, not only were the bid documents sent to known vendors, but the bid wire services that many companies use did pick up and distributed to companies. On December 27th, we held a mandatory pre-bid meeting for all interested bidders. A Q&A document was generated and posted to our website for all interested vendors to view. I presented a timeline and schedule for awarding the contract to the Timberlane Regional School Board on January 11th. At that time, the original target date that we would have ever had a recommendation for you was February 15th. Bids were due on January 17th. We received a response from First Student and Student Transportation of America. The Timberlane Regional School Board requested that we come back and present a recommendation on February 1st, which was 2 weeks ahead of the original schedule. At this time, the board, by general consent, authorized the superintendent to negotiate with bidders for Schedule A since Hampstead had not made a decision. On February 9th, Howard Anderson, our student transportation consultant, and me met with Dr. Farah and Mr. Boyle to discuss the process of negotiation. We were tasked with asking First Student if they would extend the pricing for option B longer than the bid documents stipulated. We were also directed to request a price change with First Student. On the afternoon of February 15th, we met with First Student, who felt they had put their best foot forward with pricing. They agreed to hold the pricing until the end of March. We also asked First Student if the multi-district discount would be applicable, and they agreed to that. And on the evening of February 15th, we reported back to the board that night. We expressed the desire to complete the process so we could not only order the new buses that were stipulated in the RFP, and to meet those lead times, but to start planning for our summer programs with the multiple transportation needs we have for those programs. The decision was tabled until a future meeting, and I believe at that time, Chairman at that time, Mr. Boyle, was going to discuss with Hampstead School Board's Madam Chair Yasenka to inquire where Hampstead stood in the process to be able to achieve that discount. So here we are tonight, and I'd be looking for the board's approval to enter an agreement with First Student, who is not only the lower cost of the two companies, but we've also been very satisfied with their performance under their current contract this year, in my tenure since July.
So you should have in your packet the,
You do have a bid analysis between the two
Analysis.
vendors that bid.
so First Student is your recommendation that we accept that contract or that bid?
That's correct, and that's also the recommendation of our student transportation consultant.
Can you repeat his name?
Howard Anderson is the principal of Student Transportation Consulting of New England.
So I don't know if you've had a chance to really look through these tonight, but you can see the work that was done about the bids. Yes, Dr. Farr. Smiling is good.
Is the transportation consultant done with his work? Because we never, I mean, part of the
Okay.
reason we hired
So
the
your question is
No,
the consultant done?
Excuse me.
Let's answer one question at a time. Is the consultant done?
The consultant is not done. He still continues to maintain contact, but we were diverted to investigate other issues, try to renegotiate with First Student per the directive from the board. We decided that it was a better option for us to move forward with the RFP and try to secure a contract while working on the efficiency study that he's also tasked with performing.
Next question, Dr. Farr.
When is the efficiency study going to be completed?
Well, right now, our priority is getting a bus contract secured so we can begin planning. So that's been our priority number one.
Okay, but can I ask the question because I didn't get it? When is the efficiency study going to be completed? That's been going on for, I think, maybe 4 or 5 months now?
With the
Because
consultant.
It relates to the cost of the contract.
We didn't even get the consultant on board until the first week of December, and I think you can imagine with the holidays, that took some time away as well. So it has not been 4 or 5 months, with all due respect.
Thank you. Tom, Jen, you had a question?
When did the board request the efficiency study?
When did the board request the efficiency study?
I had, on November 2nd, asked for the funding for the consultant to do so.
Other questions? Any other members who haven't had a chance? Yes, Brian?
Maybe I'm missing it here, so Hampstead's already made their decision?
Hampstead has not made a decision, and I am scheduled to present to their board at their school board meeting on Tuesday.
Because maybe they're behind us because of,
Obviously, it's kind of key that was my concern, in order for us to get the multi-district discount, we need Hampstead,
That's correct.
100,000.
That's correct. Had
So-
you gone with only option A, which would be Timberlane only, the only bidder for option A was First Student.
Danny, had your hand up and then.
Is this a
anyone else?
3-year contract with options for one more year at the end of the 3 years?
That's correct. That's how the RFP was written, with a 3-year, with an option for a 2-year extension.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask a question, and I'm gonna ask it of Brian because you brought it up. So, remember the board that was in place suggested that the chair speak to the chair of Hampstead's board, and you did that, right, Brian? You didn't get, what information did you get, or did you not get anything?
Well, the information I got, it was, and obviously that didn't happen. She was, Karen Schenker, it was supposed to happen at their last board meeting, which I thought maybe they get snowed out.
But it was, I thought the 27th was the date.
That was, and when I spoke to Karen, that was, she didn't have any feedback. She said they were gonna make a decision on it.
So, we didn't get the information. I personally was hoping that Brian would get some more stuff from Hampstead that would help us. So,
Right.
Kim, back to you. You had another question?
No, I just had a comment on the 4 to 5 months. So the consultant was brought on December 1st.
First week in December. I'm
So
not sure of the
December,
exact
January,
date we brought
February,
him on for
March.
the first day.
It's close to 4 to 5 months.
Okay, okay. Anybody else have a question?
I guess so.
Actually, I do, sorry.
Yes, sir.
I don't remember, I apologize. This right now is for 29 buses, and if the efficiency study comes back, can we adjust that down, or up, like, is there?
We do, but I think we've also informed the board that we think 29 is the minimum number we're going to need to transport the students.
Okay. I just wasn't sure if there was wiggle room, if the efficiency study came back and indicated that changes needed to
Sure,
be
and I
made.
can say that there's always wiggle room built in on our end, right? So if we decrease the amount of buses, that just decreases our overall cost to the vendor.
Okay.
So we decrease the number of buses. Say it again. We decrease the number of buses.
We would not pay for that bus.
Correct.
So I don't think that it was in our best interest to complete the efficiency study prior to bidding it out.
Jen, another question.
So if Hampstead decides to go with per student as well, would they then honor the combined?
Yes.
Because April 1st seems to be the date, right?
That's what first students.
They've got to decide the 27th.
Yes, correct.
They,
A follow-up, Jeff?
yeah, does Hampstead have the same April 1st deadline?
Yes.
So what is your pleasure here, board? You've heard the recommendation.
I don't see much choice.
Mr. Wood,
I'd like to make a motion to accept the bid for student, or award the bid, however you wanna word it.
Second. However Kelly wants to word it.
we've kind of asked our questions prior to the motion. I kind of allowed that after Mr. Geary's fine synopsis of the situation. Anything else? If not, I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor of the motion? 9-0. All right?
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you
Tom.
very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Now, this agenda was set. We fulfilled the portion of the agenda as it was written. I know we've all received calls or emails from our constituents. And while individuals and delegations is not on this agenda, I believe that we could agree to allow or entertain those that would wish to be heard from the public. Now, there's some caveats on that, and probably some of you want to mention some of that. One of the caveats I would say is, I'm sure there are people that saw this agenda and believed that, have some faith in the agenda, that there was not going to be an individuals and delegations moment on this agenda. I don't want them feeling disenfranchised that we weren't including them. We will have, going forward, on our regular meeting of April 5th, certainly an individual and delegation section. I don't want you to feel disenfranchised that because you're not here tonight, you'll have an opportunity to speak to us. Would anyone want to else speak to my idea here, or Lee?
I will, because I was advocating that we do, even though it wasn't part of the agenda, that we allowed the public an opportunity to comment, because I felt that there were individuals that would want to speak. But there have been events that have occurred in the district, and they've been hashed out extensively over social media, and this isn't the venue for that. So if there's any public comment to that, we should not entertain that, and there should be an immediate recess on that, and that individual should be asked to leave the meeting. This delegations and individuals portion is for school board business and not to address private, personal matters. That's done in a non-public session, as we exhibited earlier tonight.
I think that this is an opportunity, if you wish to speak, that you understand we're gonna listen, as we've always done. We're not going to entertain what I call a back and forth. It's not a discussion with the person presenting. I want that person who presents to feel they can make their statement and that we will hear it. And if it's something we need to take into consideration going forward, of course we would. But it is not a time to broach topics that are not of our, what I call purview. I believe it's a civil matter, and I want people to speak civilly and respectfully, as I speak civilly and respectfully to people. Stephanie, sorry.
So I just want to make sure I understand. So you're opening up the opportunity for people to speak about a subject that happened, a topic that happened recently, yet it wasn't on the agenda. Is that right? No.
No, it's offering an opportunity for public comment.
Right. But
Similar to
how-
all our other meetings.
True. But how, in this venue, how would anybody know that?
How?
No what?
How could there be an opportunity for anyone to speak now?
If
that's what I-
anybody's here to, is anybody here to
Point.
speak?
I'll speak.
I mean, well,
Wait a
wait,
minute,
wait, there's no surprise there. Jack, wait,
Well, you would be welcome to speak if we agree, if we make
didn't
an
make a
agreement that
motion
you
to
can
allow
speak,
it.
you have to pick up one of the blue forms.
just say, if there's no one here to speak, then this whole conversation is moot.
Exactly.
Was the point I was trying to get across. I understand.
This is a platform for school business to be done publicly and openly. School
Absolutely.
business.
But I am in favor
Education.
of citizens that want to speak. I absolutely am. I'll never stifle that. But if there's no one here to speak, other than Jack, no offense, Jack, then it would make everything we're doing right now moot.
Well, it looks like Jack wants to speak, so he's got the form in his hand. But I want
It's a big mistake.
the person speaking to understand that
This is a mistake
I'll
about this subject for the public.
I'll turn the cameras off, I'll ask for a recess. If you can't restrain our discussion, I'll ask for you to leave. If you're not, I'll have you escorted and adjourn the meeting. I want it to be civil on whatever topic we're ever discussing. Sorry, I feel I have to remind people of that their discussion should be civil. That goes to Mrs. Belcher for Danny, then Kim.
I wanted to hear what Brian's opinion.
Brian was expressing an opinion, so you,
I can
guess-
read his.
Yeah, you read my, I'm a pretty easy
I
guy
can
to read
you,
here.
But
Thank you.
his body
I'd like to
language.
hear what you have to say.
I guess my thoughts are kind of following what Stephanie Duby's saying. I don't understand why we're inviting one member of the public to speak. Apparently, I think the elephant in the room, I think we probably know what the topic is. And if people were planning on addressing that,
Can I speak to?
About anything.
what anything.
There was no public.
There was
Because
no
it's
public
also
comment. I'm in
up.
favor of anybody,
Okay.
like,
Oh,
anything.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I'm saying to myself, why would you do that if
No,
if
no,
there
no,
was
no,
5 people that they wouldn't expect to come down here?
That's, and I understand that, and my thing was, is if somebody had something to say, I wanted to allow them to say it.
I think in a spirit of compromise and collaboration, we realized there was some concerns that there were some things missing off this special agenda that certainly go on forward-looking agendas, but the people that spoke to some of us said, why can't we have an individuals and delegations? That's all I was trying to address. An opportunity
Thank you, Sue.
to address that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
I said thank you.
Oh, I thought it was coming from somebody beyond you, but thank you, Steph, saying
No, no.
thank you. Kim? A thought?
I'm just looking at the policy again on the special meeting, because this is a special meeting. It said a special meeting shall be held at the call of the chair or at the joint request of any 3 members. Notice shall be given of all matters that are to be considered at such special meeting. So,
So
this
you're
was
not
not
in favor?
noticed. I'm not, yeah, I mean,
You're not in
again,
favor of a
going
still-
back to policies and the fact that members of the public looked at the posted agenda and did not see this, they probably would not be here,
So do we want to take a motion on have a motion on this and a vote?
On what?
I just want to, I want to speak to Kim's point.
Go
So I own that. I'm the one that violated the policy. I wasn't aware of it. I requested, Sue, that we add delegations and individuals to tonight's agenda.
Why would you request Sue?
Yeah.
Huh?
That's
Why would you
confusing.
request Sue?
Because when I had made my decision on who I was going to support as chair, I
You
asked
knew the
Sue.
vote in advance? How would you know who the vote in advance?
Okay, let's not start the Oscar-winning award show here,
That's crazy,
okay?
Sue.
Yeah,
Come
I
on.
know.
Brian, there's
I
no
know,
conspiracy
It's
here.
shocking, isn't it? It's unconscionably shocking. Stop, all of you stop.
Wow. Really,
Do you
Sue?
wish to have a allow public comment tonight, or
Wow.
not? That's all I was trying to offer. Yes, Kim.
I would like us to follow the policy that says a special meeting shall be held at the call of the chair, and notice shall be given of all matters that are to be considered at such special meeting. So, the idea that we did not follow policy BEDB is superseded by policy BEA, because this is a special meeting, and the notice was given by the chair of the additional items that were to be on the agenda.
And he forwarded those, the chair that was in place forwarded those to the superintendent. You just read
So
that.
those items are on the agenda. Those items are on the agenda. This is a special meeting.
They're not-
Notice was given
They're not-
of
They're not
all
on the agenda.
matters to
They
be
need to be in my hands
considered.
7 days in advance, and they were not.
No, I'm
We're not.
sorry,
This
you're
is-
not reading the policies
Yes, I am.
correctly.
This is not going where I thought we were having a congenial conversation and moving things forward.
But you have to be privy to all of the emails surrounding this particular subject.
All the
Chair.
open meeting law violations that we had over online?
There was no open
Yes, there
meeting
is.
violation laws.
Absolutely
No,
are.
there wasn't.
You can't reply
No.
all.
Did
Those
you
are all-
have,
every single
do you
one
have
is a
something from
violation.
the attorney stating that?
Maybe I might.
Fantastic. If I may,
Are you gonna speak to this topic,
I have a
Steph, please?
question.
Yeah.
the superintendent indicated that, and actually read the policy BEDB. And in that policy, he indicated that he consulted, that the superintendent and the chair should consult and set the agenda, right? So I would like to ask the former chair if he had any involvement whatsoever in the setting of this agenda. It's a very simple question.
0.
Thank you.
Can I
Thank
speak
you.
to that? I will also, I would like the public to understand, in emails where the former chair purposely left me off the email chain and went directly to Kathy Belcher, and then I replied, and then he replies back to Kathy Belcher and purposely kept me out of the preparation for any agenda. And I have the emails, by the way. And you can ask Kathy Belcher. Don't take my word for it.
And this is the productive piece of this meeting that I was
It's im-
hoping we weren't gonna have.
That was after the special meeting
So-
was posted.
Of course.
So-
Of course it was.
Of course it was.
So,
No, it was the last
You
meeting
got-
that we didn't have, too.
Stephanie got to ask the question. That's a good question, Stephanie. I
And I
agree.
hope that everybody
heard
heard
it.
that answer.
We heard it.
That the chair had
I'm-
nothing to do, if I may,
Okay,
that
no,
the chair had
you
nothing to
don't need to
do
repeat
with
it,
the
Steph.
setting
It's
of the
fine.
agenda.
I'm
The school
gonna-
board chair.
I'm gonna call a recess here if we can't
It's fine, have me
be,
escorted.
be,
It's fine,
be polite.
it's fine, we got
I'm
17
gonna
police
adjourn
here,
this
have me
meeting
escorted.
unless there is something else that's constructive to what we were discussing. Danny?
Motion to adjourn.
No,
Second.
Second.
Second?
It's done.
no, there's,